All right, it's talk time. On Monday, we started our series on the power sector of the Nigerian economy with a focus on how to improve the industry.
Yes, indeed. We started with a review of the privatization process, and on Tuesday, which was yesterday, we treated power generation, and today we will briefly talk about generation again and then move on to electricity transmission. Of course, we start with transmission, and joining us from our Abuja studio is Managing Director of the Abuja Distribution Company, Neil Croucher. Good morning and thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast this morning. Let's begin this way.
Good morning.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. South Africa, a country of barely 60 million people, if I'm correct or otherwise, just let me know. 40,000 megawatts of electricity right now available for South Africans. In Spain, barely 50 million people. They have about 102,000 megawatts of electricity. Nigeria, about 170 million people have to use 5,000 megawatts of electricity. What do you think really is the missing link, that Nigeria continues to struggle with generating enough power, not to talk of distributing and, of course, transmitting?
Yes, well, certainly those numbers, as you've put them forward, highlight the challenge that Nigeria has. Nigeria needs to increase those levels of generation tenfold or more over the coming years. And that comes, of course, at great cost. But it's just something that Nigeria has to do in order to develop the economy of Nigeria. For me, there's a number of things that have to be done. First of all, we need to stabilize the power that we do have. Clearly, there are challenges with vandalism of pipelines, and those need to be addressed. And we also have to look at diversifying our energy sources. Nigeria is fortunate to be blessed with a number of natural resources from which it can produce electricity. And those need to be exploited. So there is still, of course, more gas and more hydro, but in addition, to limit the risk and spread the risk, one should develop coal in this country and also expand upon renewable power. Renewable power now with increasing volumes around the world, there's a lot of focus on renewable power. Fortunately, the prices have come down very significantly to a point where they are now competitive with the more conventional sources of power. So a framework needs to be created which enables all of those resources to be developed. Primarily though, the challenge that the sector faces is that its commercial health is not good. You need to create a sustainable sector where the levels of revenue coming into the sector are sufficient to sustain the entire value chain. And that is the problem that we have currently in Nigeria. It's the problem that we've had, and it's the problem which still exists today. So that is the key issue, is creating the climate where there's sufficient funds coming in to sustain the sector. It's been estimated that the current shortfall in funds that are coming into the sector from customers, the current shortfall is at about $1.5 billion per year. And clearly the sector will not be sustainable unless that challenge is addressed. And in order to tackle that issue, it really needs all sectors of society in Nigeria to be part of that solution. It really starts with customers. We have a situation where only half of the power is paid for in the country.
Yeah, Neil, let's get to the kind of challenge that is inherent in the ability, the capacity to generate enough megawatts for transmission to Nigerians to have light in their houses and in the industries and all of that. Now, we know that you talked about the commercial health not being very well, but we know that Nigeria is the largest, when it comes to market, Nigeria is the largest market where anything in the world can sell and anyone can make good profit in Nigeria. But let's get to making the product available. Now, what are the kind of challenges generally in generation of electricity in Nigeria? Can you give us a picture so Nigerians can get to understand the kind of issues in there?
Yes, of course, yes. The issue, though, that I was making is that if one doesn't have the right climate for investors to come in, then clearly they will not come in. So you need to have a very visible commercial arrangement where investors will have confidence to come in and invest in power stations. Power stations are very capital-intensive operations, and they also are typically very long-term projects. A big coal-fired power station can take many years of planning and development before the first kilowatt hour is produced at that power station. So for those kind of investors to come in, you need a very stable commercial framework which gives assurances that the investor will make his returns on those investments. The other key issue is to develop these long-term plans. As I say, coal-fired power stations can take many years of planning and take many years to build. But you have to start that planning now, and it needs to be done in a coordinated way, obviously trying to achieve least cost, highest efficiencies, but that planning needs to start now. It needs to be coordinated with both upstream issues. The gas supplies need to be coordinated with the development of the power station, and similarly the transmission works need to be coordinated so that the power can be properly evacuated to the users, the discos, and hence customers.
Now, this government has been making quite a number of efforts in the area of attracting foreign participation by commissioning independent power projects and all of that in the area of generation. You know, what do you think are the difficulties? How would you assess, government's attempt to actually bring in foreign investors? Of course, you've said that, government needs to create that environment that will attract or give confidence to foreign investors. What are those specifics that you would like to see, for government to put in place if foreign investors are to buy into the electricity or power project in Nigeria?
Well, certainly the first steps have been taken, and I think Nigeria is to be commended for embarking on an extremely ambitious program to privatize its electricity sector. This is a huge task. It's going to take some years to bear the full fruits, but the benefits for Nigeria will be massive ultimately. So the first steps have been taken. Unfortunately, though, as to be expected, there have been some challenges along the way, and those challenges need to be tackled. Probably at the moment, the performance of the electricity sector is at a low. We have low levels of generation. There are a number of other issues. Levels of theft of electricity and non-payment has actually increased. So these are the challenges that need to be taken, that need to be addressed. I believe the start has been made. What we need to do is to take stock of the progress that has been made and adjust the program going forward so that the remaining challenges solutions can be found, and we can go to the next level of this transformation. In my view, there can
next
be no
level B.
turning back. One needs to follow down this road, and we need to stay the course.
What would that next level be then?
Sorry, can you repeat that, please?
You said, some measures need to be put in place so that we can move to the next level. And I was asking what exactly that next level would be.
The key challenge at the moment is that the tariffs that are being charged are bringing in insufficient revenue into the sector. And the reason that is happening is that for every 2 kilowatt hours that are delivered to customers, only one get paid for. So one has to come up with a mechanism that whilst we have these very high losses and whilst we have very low volumes being generated, there needs to be a mechanism to address this liquidity shortfall which the sector is facing. Now, there are ways that can be done. In some countries, they have followed the route of applying subsidies in the short term to address this problem until volumes pick up and losses drop off. And I think if ever there was a time and a place for a subsidy to apply it, the electricity sector would be one such area in this country at this time. But that's not the only way to tackle it. As I say, if you create a framework where the investors have full confidence in coming in and they can see that over the medium to long term they will generate the returns, then I believe the investors will come in. It was said earlier, Nigeria it's a country of huge potential. There's a massive population and hence a massive market for electricity. There's all these natural resources. Nigerians are very entrepreneurial. So from every angle, electricity can become an extremely viable sector sometime down the line.
All right. Now, Neil, you talked about the fact that these power issues, they are capital intensive generally. Now, if we assume that the right atmosphere, the environment is convenient and conducive for investors to come in, ideally, how long would it take before, if the environment is conducive right now, how long would it take before people begin to feel the impact of having light in their houses and if the industry is running?
Yes, I think it's an important point that, because I believe the expectations were unrealistic when this program was started a few years back. In truth, to transform an electricity sector can take 10 years, 15 years to get to a point of being a first world operation. But that's not to say that benefits can't be felt at a much earlier stage. I think at the moment it's true to say that those benefits have not been seen much by customers because the levels of generation haven't picked up. They've in fact dropped back. And also much of the work that the discos have been doing perhaps have not been seen by customers, but a lot of it has been done behind the scenes in upgrading the systems of the disco. Many of the discos did not have IT systems, information systems. The billing systems were antiquated. The vending systems were antiquated. There was no customer service. So a lot of work has been done by the discos in changing those systems. And I believe that customers will start to see the benefits now rolling out. I am aware that most discos are about to very aggressively embark on metering programs. And that's the one thing we hear every day from customers. Customers want meters in Nigeria. But I believe that will now commence at a very rapid rate.
All right, let's even talk about a major challenge right now that the Minister for Power himself, Works and Housing, Rajiv Fashola, has said, which has to do with the vulnerability of the gas pipelines that have been over and over again, being bombarded and, destroyed. And it's causing this shortfall of electricity, which is already, it's already in a bad place, 5,000 megawatts, and now it's much lower than that. How does Nigeria fix that challenge, especially in the short term, in securing the gas pipelines? What would be your recommendations?
Yes, obviously that has come at a very unfortunate time for the sector. We are struggling to get on our feet, and to have that come along at this time and our product is taken away from us, obviously no business can be viable if it hasn't got a product to sell. So I'm sure it's a short-term issue. I have confidence that the government will resolve these issues. I believe it'll need a solution which is a comprehensive solution, political, enforcement, monitoring of the pipelines, so a multifaceted solution. But it is important that this be done sooner rather than later for the electricity sector to start on this path of progress.
All right, Neil, we'll come to you shortly. Now these are ways through which electricity is generated world over. Now, fossil fuels, coal, oil or natural gas is one of those. Hydropower, which is by water turbine, nuclear power, which is by the steam turbine, and solar, and then wind.
Indeed, unfortunately, Nigeria does not really adopt many alternative sources. Nigeria mostly employs gas-fired and hydroelectric turbines for bulk generation of power, unlike the United States that combines various sources of energy to generate power.
Now, for instance, the USA generates about 39% of electricity from coal, 27% from natural gas, 19% from hydro, while wind, solar, and others cater for the remaining 16% of electricity generated.
In Nigeria, the generation companies, we call them GenCos, are directly responsible for electricity generation. Now, there are about 23 grid-connected generating plants in operation in the Nigeria electricity supply industry, with a total installed capacity of 10,396.0 megawatts and available capacity of 6,006.056 megawatts. Egbe Power PLC is Nigeria's largest plant with a capacity of 1,320 megawatts.
Now, the combined installed capacity of the three major hydropower stations, Kainji, Jebba, and Shiroro, hydropower from three major plants accounts for about 1,938 megawatts of total installed capacity and an available capacity of 1,060 megawatts.
Analysts say Nigerians buy about 100 billion naira worth of electricity generating equipment annually. Now, this means that Nigeria buys 3% of the global power generator equipment. Nigeria's power crisis was heightened when, in March this year, power generation collapsed to 0 megawatts for about 3 hours, and as a result, distribution companies couldn't dispense power to consumers. Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, says Nigeria can generate 12,000 megawatts of electricity, but meeting that target has been difficult because out of 140 turbines, only about half has been able to get gas to work. Okay, let's go back to Neil Croucher right now, the MD of Abuja Distribution Company. I know that, of course, being the head of the distribution company, you would even want to, focus more on that. But let's still talk about generation. Some experts have recommended that Nigeria can actually have, portfolios of short-term projects that can deliver results in the shortest possible time, especially, with the dire situation that Nigeria finds itself, where electricity really is a clear and present danger as it is.
Yes, of course, there are short-term options that are available to generate power. But typically one finds that the short-term projects are the ones that have come at higher cost. And the longer-term projects that are capital-intensive take more time to develop. Then your cost per kilowatt hour for the fuel becomes a lot lower. So I think the country needs to focus on both. As you pointed out in your short clip a little earlier, Nigeria has focused mainly on hydro and gas up to now. And we've seen the risks of putting all your eggs in one basket from the gas perspective. So I believe we need to immediately look at coal, create a climate for development of coal power stations that should easily be competitive in terms of price, in terms of tariffs associated with that. And government has already started the process to promote renewable energies like solar and wind. If one again looks at South Africa, they've had an aggressive program to promote renewable energies, which has been very successful. And one has seen just over a very short period of a few years how the tariffs associated with that power has come down substantially to a point where those tariffs are competitive with the other forms of generation in that country. So it needs to be a case of looking at all of these possibilities, developing them all together. In terms of the very short term, gas is fairly quick to develop gas-fired power stations. And of course, some countries have brought in barges. We are on the coast, the country has a coastline. One can bring in barges and generate power from such facilities, but that does not come cheaply, and you have to have ability to get that paid for. And if the customers are not paying, then it has to be paid through some other mechanism.
All right, Neil Croucher, Managing Director, Abuja Distribution Company, thanks for talking to us on TVC Breakfast.